This happened over a period of 3 or 4 years when I was very young. I don't remember exactly how old I was when it started, nor do I remember the season when I first woke up from that dream. Things like time, months, and years, for a child, aren't remembered by calendars or numbers, but by feelings. And the feeling associated with that time in my life can be summed up in one word: fear. Not a fleeting fear, not fear because of a bad night, but a fear that returns regularly, far enough away that I thought it had disappeared, then close enough to remind me that it never went anywhere. The first time I had that dream, I didn't immediately realize what was happening. I only knew that I was in my familiar bedroom, but something wasn't right. In the dream, I was lying in bed, in the very room where I slept every night. Everything was eerily accurate. The wall color, the wardrobe, the small desk tucked into the corner of the room, the faint light filtering in from the street lamp outside the window. There was nothing unusual, except for one thing. I wasn't looking with my eyes. I was looking down, from above, from near the ceiling. I saw myself lying there, a small child, curled up in a blanket, breathing evenly, completely unaware that something terribly wrong was happening right now. I saw my chest rising and falling with each breath. I saw my hair spread out on the pillow. The moment I realized that, a chill ran down my spine. Not a superficial cold, but a deep, internal chill, like when you suddenly realize you're in the wrong place, at the wrong time, and no one can help you. I tried to move. Not my arms or legs, because I had no arms or legs. I was just a point of view. I tried to drift toward the body lying beneath, as if simply touching it would restore everything to normal. It felt like trying to swim in thick, heavy air, but I couldn't move forward. I could only turn my head. That made me even more panicked, because it gave me time to look. The worst part was that I knew I was dreaming. I wasn't completely asleep. I was half awake, half asleep. I was conscious. I understood this wasn't real life. I even tried to reassure myself with a very childish thought. It's just a dream. It'll be over when I wake up. But the more I thought that, the greater my fear became. Because if this was just a dream, why did it feel so real down to the smallest detail? After the initial panic subsided a little, I began to observe the room. And that's when I realized the first thing was wrong. The digital clock on the bedside table. In real life, I knew exactly how it worked. I usually looked at it every morning when I woke up. But in the dream, the red numbers weren't moving forward. They were counting down, not fast, not jerky, slowly, patiently, 1 second at a time. I didn't know what number it started from. I didn't know where it was counting to. But every time I looked at it, my heart beat faster, as if instinct was trying to warn me of something I wasn't old enough to understand. Then I started seeing drawings. At first, just one, pasted on the wall opposite the bed. I thought maybe I was mistaken, or that it had been there before. But when I looked closer, I saw another one, then another. On the wall, on the wardrobe door, on the back of the bedroom door, the drawings were done with colored pencils. The strokes were clumsy, just like those of a child my age, but I couldn't remember ever drawing them. Not forgetting, but a very certain feeling. I had never done this before. All the drawings were the same. A line of people holding hands, all smiling. In the middle was a smaller figure, me. Behind them was a house with a blue roof. I didn't recognize the house. I couldn't remember ever living there. But looking at it, I had a strange feeling of familiarity, as if I had stood before it many times before, though I couldn't remember when. On the bedroom floor lay my old toy train. Each time, it was in a different position. This detail frightened me more than anything else. Because in real life, I lost that toy a long time ago. I remember searching the whole house for it, crying, asking my parents, and finally having to accept that it was gone. Yet in my dreams, it always appears, as if it had never left. After observing the room long enough, I always feel an irresistible urge. Not a thought, but a pulling force, as if something inside me is forcing my gaze to turn in a certain direction. The window. I don't want to look. I know that if I look, he will be there. But I still look, and every time, he's already standing there. The man stands right against the glass, just inches away. He has short gray hair. On his left temple is a scar that looks like an old cut. I don't remember his face clearly. My memory couldn't retain it. But I remember his eyes. Not angry, not hurried, but the eyes of someone who had waited a long time. He stood there, looking at me. Sleep. Then he raised his hand and began scratching at the window. Slowly, steadily, as if he knew the window wouldn't open immediately. But sooner or later, it would be his turn. That was almost always when I woke up. I'd spring up in bed, my heart pounding, my shirt soaked with sweat, Sometimes I'd run straight to the window. Sometimes I'd be too scared to move, lying still, listening to my own heartbeat. But in the end, I always checked. And there was never anything there. After the fourth time, I told my parents. My mother said it was just a nightmare. My father said they were always in the next room. I nodded. But deep down I knew this wasn't over. 6 months later, I began to believe it was gone. Then one night, the dream returned. Everything was exactly the same as before. Except for one thing. The bedroom window was open. I woke up paralyzed from sleep, unable to move, unable to scream, unable to turn my head. I felt cold. The cold air rushed into the room as if the window were truly wide open. Those 5 minutes felt like an eternity. I thought only one thing. This time, he wouldn't need to scratch at the door anymore. When I finally managed to move, I rushed to the window. It was still locked. But from that night on, one thought never left me. If the dream wasn't just a figment of my imagination, how many times had that man stood outside the window? This happened a few years after my childhood nightmares. By then I was older, old enough to believe I had overcome my unseen fears. I no longer had the dream of the man outside the window, and over time, the memory faded like any other childhood fear. I thought I was safe. I was wrong. That night, I stayed at my friend Duncan's house. His parents were away for the weekend, so the three of us decided to gather, watch a movie, and sleep in the living room. Besides Duncan and me, there was Ian, another friend in the group. Duncan's living room was quite large, with 2 big, soft sofas, enough for all 3 of us to lie comfortably. We spread blankets on the floor and watched random things on TV until one by one we drifted off to sleep. I didn't turn on any music. No video. That night, I slept normally. And that's where the problem lay. I had a very strange dream. I was out at sea, on a small sailboat. I'd never sailed before, but in my dream, it didn't seem unusual at all. The sea was gently choppy, the waves rising and falling slowly. The sky was a deep, purplish gray, like twilight. The wind was strong but not frightening. It felt more like being in a movie than a nightmare. Then the boat lurched violently. I didn't see what we hit, but I felt the impact. A low, heavy sound came from below. The sail tilted to one side, and I heard something crack. Water began to pour in from the bottom of the boat. I panicked. I knelt down, trying to use my coat to block the water, but it was completely useless. Cold water quickly rose around my feet. The boat tilted further, and I knew I couldn't do anything to save the situation. The moment the boat began to sink completely, a dolphin leaped out of the water. It looked straight at me and said in a human voice very clearly, "Wake up." I woke up with a start. Not groggy, not drowsy. I was wide awake. I was lying on the sofa in Duncan's living room. The familiar ceiling, the dim light from the street lamp filtered through the window. Duncan and Ian were still fast asleep beside me. For the first few seconds, I just lay still, trying to slow my breathing, telling myself it was just a strange dream. Then I heard a sound. The sound of water. Not a dripping sound. Not the sound of a creaking pipe, but the sound of water rushing, steadily, continuously. It was coming from somewhere upstairs. I lay still, listening. The sound was too clear to ignore. It sounded exactly like a faucet turned on full blast. The thought that someone might have forgotten to turn off the water flashed through my mind. But then I realized something very important. Duncan's parents weren't home. And before going to bed, we had checked everything carefully. I sat up, my heart starting to race. I looked over at Duncan and Ian. They were both still asleep, showing no signs of anything unusual. The sound of the water continued, showing no sign of slowing down. I stood up, trying to walk as quietly as possible. The wooden floor creaked under my feet, causing me to stop several times. But no one woke up. I headed towards the stairs. The higher I went, the louder the sound of the water became. It was coming from the bathroom at the end of the hallway upstairs. The bathroom door was slightly ajar. From a distance, I could see the sink. One of the knobs was turned all the way to the right. Water was gushing out, splashing onto the mirror and countertop. There was no way this could have happened naturally. There was no way. I took another step, then stopped. The bathroom was quite large. There was a shower with a curtain, a long counter, and a blind spot where the toilet was located. Lots of blind spots. A chilling thought ran through my head. Someone could be in there, or crouching, or hiding behind the shower curtain. or right behind the door. I backed away. I didn't turn and run. I didn't scream. Just retreated step by step, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I turned and ran down the stairs and straight towards Duncan. I shook him hard. "Duncan, wake up." He mumbled something, clearly not fully awake. I shook him harder. "There's someone in the house." That woke him up instantly. We whispered quickly. Ian was still asleep. We decided not to wake him up immediately, fearing unnecessary noise. Duncan grabbed a baseball bat from near the sofa. I followed closely behind him as we tiptoed back upstairs. The water was still running. When we reached the bathroom door, Duncan didn't hesitate. He pushed the door open. Everything happened so fast. From a hidden corner inside, a figure lunged out. The person slammed into Duncan, sending both of us tumbling to the floor. I only managed to see an arm raised, holding a piece of PVC pipe. He swung it down. I didn't have time to think. I lunged in. I pulled the man away from Duncan, and we both wrestled on the slippery bathroom floor. He was bigger, stronger, and clearly prepared. Finally, he broke free, pushed us both aside, and ran toward the stairs. By the time we rushed out onto the porch, he was gone. Only the sound of running water remained in the bathroom. The police arrived about 30 minutes later. They searched the entire house. The point of entry was an unlocked downstairs window. No cameras, no clear enough tracks to follow. They said it was most likely just a random burglary. But none of us believed that. Because if it were a burglar, why would they turn the water taps all the way on? Why would they set such a noisy trap? Months later, I still think about that night. Not about the fight, not about the police, but about the dream. About me dreaming of rising water, right before I heard the actual sound of running water. From that night, I learned something that still sends chills down my spine whenever I remember it. Sometimes, dreams don't warn you about what's about to happen. They just wake you up at the right time, before it has a chance to kill you. I'm 31 years old and a high school teacher in a small town in Oregon. I live alone in a rented, old, single-story wooden house from the 1972nd on the edge of town, with a patch of low pine forest behind it. I chose to live there because it's quiet. I later realized that quiet and isolation aren't always the same thing. My life is pretty simple. I teach, grade papers, go home, cook, watch a little TV, and then go to bed. I'm not the party type. I don't drink alcohol either. The only thing I have a habit of doing before bed is background music, usually a gentle talk podcast or the sound of rain. I've been doing that for years. It helps me sleep soundly and, more importantly, without dreaming. Because when I was a child, I had a lot of strange nightmares. Not exactly terrifying in a monster or gory way, but there was always this feeling that something was watching me. As I grew older, those dreams disappeared, and I thought it was all over. I was wrong. It started on a perfectly normal Tuesday night, around late autumn. I was more tired than usual because I'd been supervising exams all day. I went home, ate dinner, showered, and went to bed earlier than usual. I forgot to turn on my podcast. That didn't happen often, but that night I didn't notice. I fell asleep very quickly, and I dreamed. In the dream, I was lying in my own bed, but the perspective wasn't from my eyes. I was looking down at my body from above, as if there were a camera mounted on the ceiling. My first feeling wasn't fear. It was something wrong. I knew I was dreaming. I knew it, but I couldn't control my body. I tried to drift down, tried to turn back inside myself, but I could only turn my head and look around the room. Everything looked exactly the same as in real life, except for one detail. My bedroom door wasn't locked. I always lock my bedroom door before going to bed. Always. Then I saw light. A thin, pale yellow beam of light filtered through the crack in the door. Not strong, not dazzling, just enough for me to realize the light in the hallway was on. There was no one else in the house. I tried to scream. I couldn't hear myself. And then I woke up. I sat up in bed, my heart pounding. The room was dark. The bedroom door was closed. The lock was still on. No light. I laughed at myself. Just a dream from exhaustion. I put on my podcast, pulled the covers up, and went back to sleep. The next morning I had almost completely forgotten about it, until the second night. On the second night, I didn't forget to turn on my podcast. But around 3 in the morning, I woke up suddenly. No dreams, no sounds. Just the feeling that something had changed in the room. I lay still for a few seconds, listening. The house was quiet, no wind, no footsteps. Then I realized what had woken me up. My bedroom door was open, just a crack, and in the hallway, the lights were on. I sat up very slowly. My heart was pounding, but I wasn't panicking. I thought maybe I'd forgotten to turn off the light. Maybe I'd forgotten to lock the door. People often convince themselves like that. I got out of bed, opened the door wide. The hallway was empty. Nothing. I turned off the light, locked the door, and went back to bed. But I couldn't fall back asleep. In the nights that followed, the dream returned. Not every night, but every few nights, I would dream the same scene. I looked down at myself from the ceiling, saw the bedroom door open, saw the lights in the hallway. Each time, the dream lasted a little longer. I started noticing the small details. In the dream, there were marks on the hallway floor, like slight drag marks, like something had been dragged across it. In real life, I saw nothing. I bought a security camera, not because I believed someone had broken in, but because I needed evidence for myself. The camera was placed in the hallway, pointed directly at the bedroom door. First week, nothing. Second week, nothing. But the dream didn't disappear. It just changed. In the new dream, I no longer looked from the ceiling. I looked from the corner of the hallway. I was standing outside my bedroom, looking at myself sleeping. The feeling, it's hard to describe. Not like fear, more like disgust at myself. And I realized something that sent chills down my spine. I don't remember how I got out of the room. One night, after a particularly long dream, I woke up and didn't dare go back to sleep. I sat up, opened my phone, and checked the security camera footage. Fast forward. No one. Nothing. Then I slowed it down. Around 2:47 a.m. The camera recorded the bedroom door opening. I walked out into the hallway. Standed there for about 2 minutes. Did nothing. Then went back into the room. I don't remember that. After that night, things got worse. The camera recorded more footage. Sometimes I was standing in the hallway. Sometimes I was sitting on the floor. Once, I stood very close to the camera, looking directly into the lens. My eyes were open, but my gaze wasn't like mine when I was awake. I started locking the room door with the extra latch. It didn't work. There are things you shouldn't watch too much. I started to fear going to sleep. I started to fear the moment I closed my eyes. I left the night light on all night. I turned up the podcast volume. I had fewer dreams, but the camera still recorded parts I don't remember. That night, I had a different dream. No hallway, no light. I stood in the bedroom. The room was empty. No bed. No furniture. Just a mirror leaning against the wall. I walked closer. In the mirror, I wasn't alone. There was a figure standing behind me, very close, and it whispered, in my own voice, "I've always been here." I moved. I no longer lived alone. I slept very little. I deleted the camera footage. But sometimes, when I wake up in the middle of the night in my new place, I still have that familiar feeling. The feeling that I'm no longer sure I'm the only one who woke up in this room.